What if I told you that the most powerful weapon in the world isn't a nuclear warhead, isn't a hypersonic missile, isn't hidden inside some underground military base? Instead, it's a ledger. It's a silent accounting book, invisible to most citizens, yet capable of determining which nation thrives, which collapses, and which becomes a geopolitical pawn. This ledger doesn't sit in a palace vault or a government archive. It lives inside central banking systems, bond markets, and debt registries. And it has been meticulously engineered over decades to control governments not through force, but through obligation, dependency, and impossible-to-repay debt. Today, we pull back the curtain on a system so quietly powerful that entire nations obey it without a single shot being fired. This is the story of the secret ledger, a global mechanism shaping wars, economies, democracies, dictatorships, and even your daily life, all without your consent. And by the end of this video, you'll understand the one truth global powers never want the public to realize. Money isn't just money. Debt isn't just debt, and nations are rarely as sovereign as they claim. Stay with me. The origins of the hidden ledger, where the world's favorite form of control was first invented. To understand how the secret ledger came to rule nations, we need to rewind centuries. To a time when rulers controlled through physical force, armies, swords, ships, cannons, but wars are expensive. Empires run out of gold, and military victories don't magically refill the treasury. Enter the idea that would quietly reshape the world. What if you could borrow power instead of buying it? The first real blueprint for this came from the Dutch Republic in the 1600s. When merchants began funding wars in exchange for future government payments, a precursor to government bonds. Then came the Bank of England in 1694, formed with a simple but world-altering concept: create money from debt, loan it to the government, and record it permanently in a central ledger. This ledger, backed by the power to tax citizens, became more valuable than any weapon, because weapons win battles. But debt wins wars and keeps nations dependent. Fast forward a century, Napoleon once warned, when a government is dependent on bankers, it is the bankers, not the leaders, who control the government. And history quietly proved him right. The rise of the modern ledger, how the world became chained to one system. Now we skip to the early 20th century, a century marked by 2 world wars, collapsing empires, and new financial technologies. During World War I, nations discovered a terrifying truth: you can fight far longer if you're willing to drown in debt. The US, Britain, France, and Germany borrowed so much from private bankers that by the end, the war wasn't just a military conflict, it was a financial hostage situation. But the real transformation came in 1944 in a small New Hampshire hotel known as Bretton Woods. Here, 44 nations secretly agreed to a new system. The US dollar would be the world's anchor, other currencies would depend on the dollar. The US would control global trade through its central bank, and every balance, every debt, every national obligation would be tracked in a central ledger system. The world had been quietly reorganized. From this moment, global power shifted from armies to accountants, from generals to central bankers, from geopolitics to the ledger. But one man would push this system past its breaking point. The breaking point, the day money stopped being real. By the late 1960s, the US was drowning in the costs of the Vietnam War and domestic spending. Foreign nations began asking a dangerous question: does the US even have enough gold to back all these dollars? The answer was no, not even close. So in 1971, in an emergency televised announcement, President Richard Nixon declared, "The United States will suspend the convertibility of dollars into gold." This wasn't temporary. It was irreversible, and it rewrote reality itself. With the gold standard gone, money no longer needed physical backing. It became a concept, created digitally by central banks, flowing as debt, tracked in ledgers, and accepted simply because people believed in it. This transformed the secret ledger from a tool into the law of the world. Now, governments didn't earn money, they issued bonds. Central banks bought them. Nations became locked in cycles of borrowing to survive. Debt didn't just rise, it exploded. Global debt in 1971, $4 trillion global debt today, over $315 trillion that's more than 36x growth and 4 times the size of the entire global economy. No military invasion could have achieved that level of control. Only a ledger could. The fallout, how the ledger silently conquered nations. The modern era revealed something chilling. Nations dante fear other nations. Nations fear defaulting on their ledger. If you default, your currency collapses, your people riot, your imports vanish, your allies abandon you, your government falls, and the bond markets punish you for decades. This ISNT theory. It has happened repeatedly. Argentina collapsed under IMF debt cycles. Greece lost economic sovereignty in 2010. Sri Lanka. Government collapsed after foreign debt crisis. The bond currency plunged 90%. Banks froze accounts. UK nearly lost its pension system in 2022 due to bond volatility. A nation doesn't need to be invaded to be conquered. All it takes is one number on a ledger, one negative entry to bring it to its knees. This is the new world order. Power belongs to whoever controls the accounting system. The failed fixes why every attempted solution only strengthens the ledger. Governments have tried everything to escape this system. 1. Printing more money causes inflation and returns them to the ledger to borrow again. 2. Raising taxes angers citizens and shrinks economies. 3. Austerity cuts collapses growth and increases debt to GDP ratios. 4. Restructuring debt only delays the crisis. Switching currencies often leads to hyperinflation. Zimbabwe, Venezuela. Every fix loops back to the same mechanism. To survive, you must go back to the ledger. This is like trying to escape a maze where every exit leads back to the same room. The structure isn't broken, it's designed this way. And now, something even more powerful is emerging. Modern parallels, the ledger goes digital, and more dangerous. Look at the trends today. Digital currencies, central bank digital currencies, CBDCs are already being tested in China, India, the EU, Nigeria, UAE, and soon the US. These give central banks total visibility into every transaction. Algorithmic debt cycles, AI models now predict, price, punish, or reward national economic behavior. Rising global debt, the world adds $10 trillion of new debt every year. That means the ledger grows stronger daily. De-dollarization attempts, countries trying to escape the system. China, Russia, BRICS are still using debt-based models. Even when nations rebel, they remain inside the architecture. The rules don't change, just the surface. It's repeating patterns. Signs the ledger is reaching its next phase. History suggests 3 warning signs before a massive financial reset. 1. Debt grows faster than economic productivity. Happening now. 2. Nations weaponize currency. US froze. Russian reserves. China limits dollar flows. Sanctions everywhere. 3. Nations lose control of inflation. 94 nations experienced above-target inflation in the last 3 years. We are watching a cycle that has repeated for every empire. Rome, Ottoman Empire, British Empire, Soviet Union. When governments lose control of their ledgers, their systems eventually collapse. Today's world is no exception. Final takeaways, 3 truths to walk away with. 1. Debt is the real currency of the world. Money is just the surface. Debt is the substance. 2. Nations obey the ledger more than their own people. You can vote for presidents, prime ministers, or parties. But bond markets determine how they govern. 3. The next global shift will start quietly on a balance sheet. Before wars, before collapses, before revolutions. The ledger moves first. Warning. The final message to leave the viewer thinking, if a single, invisible ledger can determine the fate of nations, imagine what happens when it becomes fully digital, fully automated, fully global. The next crisis won't begin with tanks or missiles. It will begin with numbers changing silently in databases we never see, controlled by institutions we never elected. And when that moment comes, every nation will discover whether it truly governs itself, whether it was governed all along. If you want more deep investigations into hidden financial systems, global power structures, and the economic forces shaping our future, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, share this with someone who still believes nations are sovereign. This is Finance Ted Official, signing off, reminding you that the world runs on what you're not supposed to notice.